The rain had already been falling for hours when Clara Whitmore stepped off the last train of the night. The small rural station of Dunwich Hollow was nearly deserted, its dim lanterns flickering as though they too were trying to escape the storm. Clara pulled her coat tighter around her, clutching the single suitcase she had brought. She had never been here before, but her grandmother's sudden passing had left her with no choice. The house, an old, sprawling manor that everyone in her family whispered about, but never spoke of directly, was hers now. Inheritance wrapped in shadows. The cab that was supposed to meet her never arrived. By the time she realized no one was coming, the station had gone quiet. No more trains, no more people. Just the storm and the endless forest road that led away into darkness. With a deep breath, Clara began walking. The road to Hollow Manor. The path wound through dense woods, and the storm's weight seemed heavier here, the branches groaning overhead. Lightning split the sky, and for a brief moment she thought she saw figures among the trees' pale shapes, standing too still. When she blinked, they were gone. By the time she reached the manor gates, her shoes were soaked, and her nerves had frayed. The wrought iron stood tall and black, carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Someone had tied strips of cloth to the bars, weathered and stained as if they'd been there for decades. They fluttered in the wind like silent prayers or warnings. The gate groaned when she pushed it open, and there it was, Hollow Manor. Its windows were like blind eyes staring into the storm, the roof sloping with age, the walls slick with moss and rain. It seemed less like a home and more like a tomb, as if the house itself had been buried alive and was now clawing back through the earth. Clara felt her stomach twist. This was hers now. The first night. Inside, the air was colder than outside. Dust and damp clung to her throat. The foyer was enormous, its chandeliered dark cobwebs cascading like curtains. Family portraits lined the walls, each face painted in muted tones, their eyes following her with a lifelike intensity. She lit a candle and climbed the grand staircase. The boards groaned beneath her weight, and every step echoed like she wasn't alone. Her grandmother's room had been left untouched. The scent of lavender still lingered, faint but unmistakable. On the dresser lay a small journal, its leather cover cracked with age. Clara hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. The first page was written in her grandmother's careful hand. The hollow does not forget. It waits, it whispers, and when the veil is thinnest, it hungers. Clara frowned, turning the page, but the rest of the journal had been ripped out. That night she dreamed of whispering voices pressing against her ears, but when she woke, the house was silent. Whispers in the dark. On the second night, the whispering came while she was awake. It began faint, like wind moving through cracks in the walls. Then it grew clearer, closer. 100 hushed voices overlapping, weaving together into something almost like language. Clara froze in bed, her candle burning low. The voices weren't outside. They were inside the walls. Heart pounding, she pressed her ear to the wallpaper. The cold plaster hummed with vibration, and beneath it, yes, she could hear crying, a child's sobs, muffled and weak. She stumbled back. "There's no one here," she whispered to herself. "It's just the house." But then the crying stopped, and something knocked back. 3 slow, deliberate raps from inside the wall. The cellar door. By the third day, Clara had nearly convinced herself it was exhaustion. Old houses made noises. Storms warped the wood. Imagination filled in the gaps. But then she found the cellar. She hadn't noticed the door before, tucked behind a faded tapestry at the end of the east hallway. The lock was rusted, the key still inside. Against her better judgment, she turned it. The door groaned open. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of earth and rot. The candlelight barely pierced the darkness, but she saw stairs spiraling down into blackness. Carved into the stone frame above the door were words she didn't understand, though when she traced them with her fingers the grooves felt fresh, as if carved yesterday. She almost went down. Almost. But someone breathed in her ear. "Don't," she spun, the candle nearly slipping from her hand. No one was there. She slammed the cellar door shut and dragged the tapestry back over it, her heart clawing at her chest. Letters from the past. On the fourth night, Clara found another journal entry tucked inside a book in the library. This one was older, the handwriting shaky, ink faded to brown. The hollow does not forgive. They said the veil grows thin here because of what was done. The children cry loudest. I can hear them every night. But the worst is not their crying. The worst is when they stop. The page ended in a blot of ink, as if the writer had been interrupted. That night, Clara did not sleep at all. The whispers grew louder, swirling through the halls. She thought she saw movement in the corner of her eye, a small figure darting just beyond her vision. Once, she heard laughter, a child's giggle echoing down the staircase. But the house was empty. She was alone, wasn't she? The mirror room. On the fifth night, Clara's candle burned out too soon. She stumbled through the corridors, searching for another, when she found a door she hadn't seen before. Inside was a room lined entirely with mirrors. Some were cracked, others covered in dust, but as she stepped inside, she realized none of the reflections were quite right. In one, she was standing still even though she moved. In another, her reflection was smiling, though she was not. And in the largest mirror at the center, there was someone else behind her, a girl, pale, hollow-eyed, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Clara whirled around. No one was there. When she turned back, the girl was closer. The girl in the mirror. Clara's breath hitched as she backed away from the mirror. The pale girl's face was pressed against the glass now, her hollow eyes wide and unblinking. Her lips moved again, silently shaping words that Clara couldn't hear, yet somehow understood. "Let me in." The whisper wasn't in the air. It was inside her skull, vibrating through her bones. Clara stumbled back, knocking into another mirror, which shattered with a deafening crack. Shards rained to the floor, glittering in the candlelight like broken teeth. When she looked again, the girl was gone, but her reflection still lingered. In the fractured glass, Clara saw pieces of herself, and behind those pieces, glimpses of something else. A hand reaching, a mouth open in an endless scream, a face pressed against the other side, desperate to push through. Clara fled the room, slamming the door shut. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she leaned against the wall. But even outside the mirror room, she swore she could hear the faintest sound of fingernails scratching at glass. The locked wing. The next day, Clara explored the western wing of the manor, one she hadn't dared to enter yet. The doors here were sealed shut, nailed over with rotting boards. The wallpaper was peeling, the air colder than the rest of the house. She pried one of the doors open with a rusted poker. Inside, the room was small, almost like a nursery. A broken rocking horse lay on its side, one eye missing. Toys were scattered across the floor, their paint faded, wood splintered. Childish scrawls covered the walls, drawn in something darker than ink. Figures with hollow eyes, stick children with mouths open wide, always screaming. And one phrase repeated over and over, "They took us. They took us. They took us." Clara's throat tightened. Her grandmother had lived here. Her family had kept this house. What had they done? A chill swept the room, and the rocking horse creaked, moving on its own. Clara bolted, pulling the door shut behind her. The journal returns. That night, she returned to her grandmother's journal, hoping for answers. She had hidden it beneath her pillow, but when she pulled it out, something was different. The ripped pages were no longer empty words had appeared, written in frantic, jagged script. The veil grows thinner. They whisper in the walls. They want the door opened. Do not open it. Do not. The words ended abruptly, the ink smeared as though by a wet hand dragging across the page. Clara's fingers trembled as she traced the letters. The cellar door. That had to be what her grandmother meant. She almost threw the journal away, but some force compelled her to keep it, as though the book itself had a will. That night, she dreamed of the girl in the mirror again. Only this time the girl wasn't trapped. She was standing at the foot of Clara's bed. The visitors. By the end of her first week in Hollow Manor, Clara realized she wasn't alone anymore. At first, it was just shadows moving in the corner of her eye. Then, whispers at her ear when she was wide awake. But on the seventh night, she saw them clearly. Children. Dozens of them lining the hallway outside her bedroom. Their skin was pale and translucent, their eyes black pits. They stood silently, watching her. Some clutched toys, others held hands. When she blinked, they were gone, but their muddy footprints remained on the floorboards. The next morning, Clara scrubbed the footprints away, only for them to return by nightfall, each time darker, each time leading closer to the cellar. A warning in the woods. Desperate, Clara left the manor and walked into the village at the edge of Dunwich Hollow. The locals eyed her with suspicion when she mentioned the house. Finally, an old man approached her, his face weathered like ancient bark. "You're living there?" he rasped. Clara nodded. He spat into the dirt. "You should have burned it the moment it was yours. The Hollow doesn't let go. The Whitmores, your blood, they made a bargain." Clara's mouth went dry. What kind of bargain? The man leaned closer, his breath sour. They fed the Hollow. That's why it whispers. That's why it cries. The veil is thin there, too thin. And when it opens fully, he didn't finish. He just shook his head and walked away, muttering prayers under his breath. Clara returned to the manor with his words lodged like splinters in her mind. The child behind the wall. That night, the crying returned. Louder, clearer. Clara couldn't take it anymore. She followed the sound, her candle trembling in her grip, down the east hallway where the wallpaper had bubbled and peeled away. The crying was coming from behind the wall itself. She pressed her ear against the plaster. The child's sobs were right there, inches away. "Hello?" Clara whispered. "Can you hear me?" The crying stopped. A tiny voice answered. "Help me." Clara staggered back, heart hammering. The voice was real. She had heard it. She ran to the cellar door. torn between fear and desperation. The child's voice echoed all around her now, louder, overlapping with dozens of others. "Help us. Let us out. Please." Her hand trembled on the key still stuck in the lock. And then she heard her grandmother's voice, sharp, urgent whispering right behind her ear. "Do not open it. The door moves." For days, Clara avoided the cellar door. She ignored the whispers, the cries, the shadows that moved through the halls at night. But the house didn't let her rest. On the 12th night, she woke to the sound of wood splintering. She grabbed her candle and ran to the east hall. The cellar door was opening on its own. The rusted lock groaned as if twisted by invisible hands. The boards shuddered, the key turning without anyone touching it. Wind howled from beneath, carrying with it a stench of decay. Clara screamed and shoved the tapestry against it, pressing with all her weight. The whispers roared furious now, hundreds of voices shrieking in unison. "Let us out." And then, as suddenly as it began, silence. The key stopped turning. The door stilled. Clara collapsed to the floor, sobbing. But as she wiped her tears, she noticed something. The tapestry she had used to cover the cellar door was different now. Its woven patterns shifted, threads moving like snakes. And in the center, where before there had been nothing, there was now a depiction of her, Clara, standing at the cellar door. The hollow claims its own. From that night forward, Clara knew the house wasn't just haunted. It was alive, watching, waiting. Every mirror she passed showed glimpses of things behind her. Every door seemed to breathe as she touched it. The whispers no longer came at night. They followed her everywhere, a chorus of desperate children and something darker beneath them. And worst of all, her grandmother's voice had stopped warning her. Now it only whispered one thing: soon.